When an emergency call comes in, officers peel out.
CIT is in service.
And at the Waterbury Police Department, also heading out the door, these two crisis intervention counselors who work specifically with kids. By day, they're with students in public schools. But after school hours, they're by the side of police officers, responding to calls that involve children.
When they see the police officers in uniform, they may get a little intimidated. But, we just come regular. We have a lot of training and education in the social work field, mental health field as well. We offer services that the police officers may not always be aware of.
On this call,
the mom had an 11-year-old daughter. She has some behavior issues. We got that she was just very upset.
Zilia Lopez and Daisha Barrera are speaking with mom and daughter.
And mom requested the services of the police department with CIT youth to come and help de-escalate some behavioral issues that she was having.
These licensed behavioral specialists ask kids questions like these.
Is there anyone that you can talk to? Do you have any friends? What are some coping skills that help you?
In English or Spanish.
¿Qué sucedió?
Lopez and Barrera are bilingual.
¿Tienes alguien con quien puedas hablar?
The purpose is to connect with kids and give them ongoing support after the police leave.
We'll collaborate with mom in the school just to make sure that the family is supported and have services, and we'll continue to receive support after this call.
Counseling services as well as after-school programs.
Crisis Intervention Team Youth, or CIT Youth, was developed in close partnership with Waterbury Public Schools.
They're both school counselors.
The chief says there was a need when police noted a rise in calls involving children in crisis aligned with the onset of COVID-19.
There's still a lot of stressors on families and children because of the pandemic. We've seen some detrimental outcomes, some deadly outcomes, frankly. We've seen kids involved in shootings. We've seen kids involved in auto theft, kids responsible for serious assaults, kids in possession of weapons, stolen weapons, handguns. And a small portion of them, yet nevertheless a tremendous amount of violence occurring.
The program not only helps individual kids going through a crisis, it also aims to curb overall youth crime in Waterbury.
Since CIT Youth launched in November, the counselors have responded to 77 cases.
There were a tremendous amount of success stories where we've seen, kids that were on the brink of being sent into juvenile detention, sent back home. Their families have been provided assistance as well. And I think the most important thing that these crisis intervention workers do is the follow-up, right? So they don't leave this family and this kid hanging after the warm handoff. They provide them some, triage type services.
40 miles northeast, the South Windsor Police Department is also seeing an uptick in crisis calls. They believe many are driven by the pandemic.
I think COVID and whatever the residual effects of the pandemic, all that can kind of compound it and create kind of a perfect storm of what this issue is.
While South Windsor police consistently get calls related to mental health, they saw a surge around the new year.
Most months we usually see about 15 calls for service with people related to welfare checks, emotionally disturbed persons. December, for example, we saw almost double that.
In January, the department posted on Facebook about that surge, writing, "We want to remind you that we are here for you." That's where crisis intervention training for officers comes in. 39 of the department's 43 officers have completed the 5-day course, including Sergeant Mark Cleverton.
I think it gives our officers perspective. It allows them to kind of look at a situation, maybe not necessarily from their eyes or from their standpoint, but from what the other person is going through.
All officers will complete training by the end of the year, learning how to provide resources like connecting people to the state-based mental health provider, CHR. And at the end of the day, he says it's about stepping beyond the role of officer and lending a sympathetic ear.
And I think that means a lot when you're talking about someone who is genuinely in a bad place. If our officers are able to speak with them, we are now problem solvers. We have an obligation to make sure that when we show up there, not only do we figure out what's happening right at that moment, but how can we help that person for the future?